Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. And first of all, as always, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to all of you that watch me waffle on sometimes, like my videos, share my videos. And some of you have joined and are my members. Thank you so much. I don't know why the dog's me. Can you hear the dog? What? Are you talking? Are you talking? That's a German Shepherd having a little conversation. She's saying thank you too. So yeah, for all of you, my members, anyone who has bought me a Ko-fi, sent me a super, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to have a little rant in this video. This is one of my pet hates or my pet things that I like to rant about because I do not understand why in the year 2023 in modern countries, not only Britain, all countries, homelessness or the unhoused, as sometimes they're being called now, why is it growing? You know, it should be reducing. I just don't understand it. I know there are more people. I suppose that's one way you could look at it. Populations have exploded, but society feels to me like it's going backwards. You know, it was getting better. It's certainly in Britain, you know, I lived through the times as it was getting better. And now, since I came to live in Spain, it feels like it's gone backwards again. But to me, homelessness, the reason why I'm so I get so upset, I suppose, about homelessness, there's a couple of reasons. One is that my dad, he was in his living memory, he was petrified of being homeless because in his living memory, he remembered the workhouses. Thing is, most people of the generations now, they don't remember them. I wouldn't remember them. It's only that he's told me about them. Workhouses, that's where you would end up if you had nowhere to live. And they were terrible places. He remembered children being brought to Manchester and sold under the bridges in Manchester, sold into families like, into labour by families that just couldn't afford their children to keep their children, and they would sell them in my father's living memory. So, and he told me about all these things. One of his favourite books was a book called The Manchester Man, which if you're from Manchester, you must read it because it sort of tells of these times, you know, and he remembered them. He remembered those times. His parents, I suppose, lived in those times. You know, his parents were Irish immigrants who, you know, never had any money. We never had any money. You know, we were your typical working class family. But luckily for me, I was born into an age when working class families started to be, thank you to socialism and the Labour government, working class families started to be able to see an opportunity to escape from that environment they were in, either by education or, you know, just more equal opportunities to people, which I don't think is true anymore now. I don't think it is open to everybody to go to university because it's so expensive. There'll be lots of people will never have that opportunity, no matter how clever they are or whether they want to go. It's not for everybody to go to university. You know, people go into trades, they go into other things. But what I'm talking about is choice. The choice. That's what you should always have, is the choice. Anyway, so I remember my father telling me about all these things. And how, you know, the manning off landlords and, you know, the terrible conditions that people lived in. You know, people would buy lino when they had money, and then they would pawn their lino when they had no money, and they would sell the lino off their floor and then buy it back again when they had money again for whatever. I don't, you know, I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is what used to happen. That's how poor people were. And then the Second World War did change that for a lot of people. So, you know, my father, he fought in the Second World War. He was a sailor. He was injured. And he was actually on his way home because of an injury he had when D-Day happened and the armistice, etc. And so he came back and he voted Labour. And he voted Labour because Winston Churchill had turned around and said that anybody who voted for Labour was a communist. And my dad was fuming, and not only him, but a lot of other servicemen, because they just fought in the war for their country. They were not communists. And they were angry with Winston Churchill, and that's why Winston Churchill lost that first election after the war. And then I think he won one more election after that. But that particular one he lost, and you would not think that he would have lost that. But he did, because of what he said about anybody who voted Labour was communist. Anyway, they came home to homes fit for heroes to live in. That was the slogan, that so they couldn't treat these servicemen that had, well, so many had given their lives and others had fought and been injured, etc. They couldn't bring them home and put them into the slums that they were living in before. So they started this massive housing project, didn't they? Building houses, and that's where my dad, my mum and dad, got their council house, which was where I was born, actually in the house, and these estates, council estates, sprang up, and housing was eased. And of course, there were less people because so many men had been killed during the war, etc. So, there were less people. There are definitely too many people now, certainly in Britain. Don't forget, I'm talking about Britain. But so at the moment, I'm talking about Britain. But the reasons for homelessness are all, are all over. It doesn't matter who's homeless. The reasons and the ways that I think that it should be solved. It has to be solved one way or another. There's got to be a way. So those are a couple of reasons why I have a real bee in my bonnet about homelessness, because I just remember my dad telling me about it, what a worry it was, how horrible it was if somebody did fall into homelessness, etc. And then in several times in my life, I have been at risk of being homeless, and I've felt that fear. And some of those times that I've been at risk of being homeless were when I had my son as well. So I've been at risk of homelessness with a child and not knowing if I would have to go to a homeless shelter several times in my life, let's say, without going into details. And also some of my family have been in homeless shelters, and I experienced, what it can be like for various reasons, for domestic abuse mainly. So I do have a little bit of experience with how it feels to be homeless or in threat of homelessness, and then in some cases with some of my family, how their experiences while they've been homeless and had to go to homeless shelters. So it's just something I just think that, as in a modern world, it just should not be. It just should not be. Anyway, I'm going to just show you. A lot of you will remember. Some of you will be too young to remember this song, but I can't play the song. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. I can't play it because I'll get done for copyright, of course, but I can show you the lyrics. And a lot of you will know this song, and I remember it very clearly. It's a beautiful song by Ralph McTell called The Streets of London. Now, another reason why I always loved Princess Diana so much was because she used to take her boys, William and Harry, out to the street, to London, to the homeless shelters, etc., to show them. She wanted them to grow up knowing a little bit, at least, about what it was like to not be as lucky as they are. And I hope that did happen. I think it. Anyway, I'm not going to comment on which one I like better or whatever, but she did that, and I hope that has helped them to grow up with a social conscience. I certainly hope so, because no matter who you are, You are just there by the grace of God that you're lucky you were born. If you're a prince or a king or anyone really in a rich family, you're just lucky that you were born into that, you know, because so many people aren't born into that. And sometimes people who are born into that because of maybe drugs or who knows what, fall into homelessness as well. Anybody can end up homeless. We're going to look at the causes of homelessness in a moment. Because that's the other thing. I don't like it when people, you know, get angry with the people who are homeless because they're addicts or because they're this or because they're that. They're not all there through their own faults. You know, some will be, but nobody would choose that. I think even if you're looking at someone, you think, oh, well, you know, they're not a nice person or whatever. Would you swap places with them? Seriously, would you? Anyway, the streets of London, the lyrics. Have you seen the old man in a closed down market, kicking up the paper with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you see no pride, and held loosely at his side, yesterday's paper telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me that you're lonely? Say for you that the sun doesn't shine. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. Show you something to make you change your mind. And of course, you could change the name London to any city, really, couldn't you? Have you seen the old girl who walks the streets of London? Dirt in her hair and her clothes in rags. She's no time for talking, she just keeps right on walking, carrying her home in 2 paper bags. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand, lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that will make you change your mind. In the all-night cafe at 11:15, same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour and he wanders home alone. So how can you tell me you're lonely? Don't say for you the sun don't shine. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London, show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the Seaman's Mission? Memory fading with the medal ribbons that he wears. In our winter city, the rain cries a little pity for one more forgotten hero and a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say that for you the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand, lead you through the streets of London, show you something to make you change your mind. So those were the lyrics of that song. A lot of you will know that song. It's a beautiful song and it's sung beautifully by Ralph McTell. As I say, I'm not going to play it on here, but I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or Spotify or something. So what I want to look at now, why do people become homeless? What are the reasons that people become homeless? And this is what came up, and I think these count wherever you are in the world. So poverty, affordable housing or lack of, I suppose. Unemployment, post-traumatic stress, yes, because a lot of our veterans, a lot of people who serve the country are homeless because I think mental health is a big thing to do with homelessness, domestic violence, mental health, trauma, foreclosure, in other words, losing your house, like, you know, not being able to pay your mortgage. They say you're only about 3 wage slips away from homelessness, really. Mental illness, healthcare, racial discrimination, and addiction. Okay, so these are various reasons why somebody may be homeless. You know, it's not only because of not because they want to be, it's not only because of addiction. In fact, I don't know if it even mentions addiction there. You know, maybe, yeah, addiction. It's not only those. There's lots of different reasons why somebody may be homeless. And they can be any age, young people who have argued with their family or whatever, or maybe they have drug issues and the family can't cope with it. There's so many different reasons. Yeah, unemployment, lack of affordable housing, poverty, trauma, domestic violence. That's why a lot of people don't leave their abusive partners, is because they have nowhere to go except, the streets. And then once you get on the streets, it's very difficult to get off the streets again. And I think this is an issue as well. There's, I'm sure there are some places, I know actually from emails that I received when I've looked at homelessness before, there are places that people can go and maybe get a CV together, try and find a job, etc. But I just don't think there's enough. I don't think enough is being done about homelessness because it's poor people. The government, certainly this government, they're not interested in poor people. They just like to look down at them. I mean, half the government from these public schools that were in the Bullingdon Club, they were, setting £5 to £50 notes in front of homeless people. That's the kind of things they do. And we've seen how vulnerable homeless people are. Just recently, the guy in Los Angeles just going round and shooting them while they were asleep. That's how vulnerable they are. Nobody would change places. And no matter how, there'll always be someone with a bigger house than us, a better house than us, more money than us. But if we've got a house, if we've got a roof over our heads, a secure place to live, that is, if we don't own it, at least, we're paying a fair rent, or, we've got a roof over our heads when the weather's cold, etc. We've got somewhere to decorate up for Christmas, etc. It really upsets me to think of people just on the streets now, especially in this weather. Even here in Spain at the moment, it's pretty cold. So I wouldn't even, I always think, oh, it must be better being homeless in Spain than anywhere else, because at least it's warm most of the time. You're not freezing to death. But you would be at the moment. It's very cold at the moment. It's 15 degrees in the house on my computer. That's cold for Spain, and outside it now, as the sun's going down, it will probably be less than that, maybe 8 degrees, and they're forecasting that it is going to get colder. And that's in the south of Spain. If you go into Madrid, it's much colder in Madrid, and the north of Spain is really cold, probably not that much different from the UK. Now, one of my subscribers sent me a photo that they took in Manchester town centre, but as a Manchester city centre, I should say. I just think you could definitely, these scenes, homelessness, etc. It could be anywhere. It could be any city centre, either in Britain or anywhere else. And I think you feel homelessness sometimes more at Christmas, or you see it. It's like a lot of us are looking forward to Christmas. I know not everybody's looking forward to Christmas for whatever reason. Everybody's got their reasons. But when you're out doing your Christmas shopping, and then look, you've got Marks and Spencer's, it'll be all done up for Christmas. Love Christmas, love Marks and Spencer's. And then people sleeping rough at the side, in the doorways. It's awful, isn't it? And no tent. That's, of course, Cruella was going to ban the tents. These poor souls, they haven't got tents. They've got cardboard boxes, sleeping bags. God, it's been freezing in Manchester. How could you, I don't even know how you could sleep, but they know each other, so at least there's some comfort, I suppose, in knowing somebody. Well, I take it they know each other, they're lying close to each other. But yeah, how awful for them. So I just wanted, but that could be anywhere, couldn't it? That could be any city centre in the UK, over Europe, in America, anywhere. Homelessness is a big thing, and it's a bigger thing in some places more than others. So what is the answer? I mean, I don't know what the answer is. All I know is I don't feel like the government are really doing anything about it in the UK, because during COVID, they found places for these people to go, didn't they? So why don't they send them back there? Why don't they open up wherever they went during COVID? And then there's these hospitals that they built overnight practically during COVID. Can't they be used for some sort of shelter? Because they just need somewhere. They don't, I'm not saying you put them into a hotel, like the immigrants. And there's all this fuss about the immigrants going into a hotel. And I understand that. But I think what you've got to realise is it's not the immigrants that are putting themselves in a hotel. The government is putting them in a hotel. And the immigrants just go wherever the government tells them to go. And if they were told to go to one of these makeshift hospitals what's happened to them? Are they being used for something? And, I've said before, I think abandoned prisons should be used. I think abandoned hotels that are closed down. You only have to walk through your town centre. And it's the same here. If I walked through the town centre or even through any of the urbanisations where people live, there's loads of abandoned offices, shops, houses, the bank. That surely there's something radical could be done. And apparently, as I found out last time when I sort of had a little rant about this, in the Netherlands, they're already using abandoned prisons, disused prisons, to help the homeless, and not only to help the homeless, but to help, to make us like community centres and things like that. Some good use could be made of them, because there's so much money being spent on putting immigrants up in these hotels. Millions and billions of pounds, they keep saying. Well, surely it wouldn't cost that much to just do up these places a little bit, just to make them basic. They don't have to be, a luxurious place to go to. They just need a roof over their head, a bed, and something to eat, don't they? And to not be freezing cold. There's got to be a way of doing it. I don't understand why it can't be done. I honestly don't. And I think the only reason it can't be done is there's no will to do it. So everybody moans, the Cruella Braverman moaning about the homeless as if they had a choice in it, and wanting to ban tents, getting angry with someone for wanting a tent to be a little bit more comfortable as they're sleeping out on the street. And instead of finding a resolution for it, for making it so that people aren't homeless, or you'll always probably get a few that are. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to tell you about, because what made me sort of really ranty about this, is there was a man found dead yesterday in Manchester that originally was found to be because he was homeless, so he was found in a doorway. I'm going to read out in a minute. Now, the thing is, now they are sort of backtracking from it a little bit and saying that maybe this guy was not homeless, but it doesn't matter. There was another guy found in his car, living in his car, dead again because of the cold weather. I don't know how there's not more found, to be honest. So if you're actually out in those freezing temperatures, how it's a surprise to me that there's not more people found dead. Anyway, so a man was tragically found dead in a shop doorway in Manchester city centre in what is believed to be the second death involving a homeless person during recently bitterly cold temperatures. So this was in Bloom Street in the city's gay village at 10:20 on Sunday. And a spokesperson for Manchester Police said the man was sadly declared deceased at the scene. The death is not being treated as suspicious, and the force said cause of death has not been determined, and the investigation was in its early stages. So now, then another man, also thought to be homeless, died after being found in a car in Beeston, Nottinghamshire. I think there's probably quite a lot of people living in their cars here and there. Anyway, so whether the guy from Manchester was homeless or not, maybe he'd just been out and he'd had a few too many to drink and he fell asleep and, just got caught by the weather. I don't know. It's not been confirmed that he was homeless. In fact, they've backtracked a little bit from that. And somebody walked past him and thought he was asleep, because people do fall asleep drunk, etc. Anyway, I'm just surprised. I honestly can say I'm surprised that more people aren't found dead. And then the other guy had to be cut free from a car by the fire brigade because he'd been living in his car and they couldn't get in the car. So, yeah, two very sad. But apart from that, I mean, they're obviously extremes that somebody actually died. But how many people are miserable? So, come on, Richie Rishi, with your massive house, and God knows how many houses he's probably got. Look at King Charles, he's the same. Loads of houses all over the world, massive houses. And, come on, there's no point in me just ranting about it, because what can I do? But all I can do is talk about it and get irritated about it and hope that soon, will it ever change? Will somebody one day really want to tackle it and make these people, who many of them have been made homeless through no fault of their own whatsoever, just as a combination of circumstances that could happen to any of us. None of us should be complacent, because none of us know when that might happen to us. So that's what I'm ranting about today. Please, if the government should do something, convert some of these prisons, convert some of these empty buildings, office buildings. In Manchester, there are loads of empty office buildings now in the town centre because a lot of people are working from home for a start. So, there needs to be a radical change. These can be put to good use in other ways, in my opinion. That's it. So I finished ranting now. That's my rant of the day. And I just want to send a prayer out to anyone who is homeless or under threat of homelessness. There's these people, they're not, they're not different from us. They are us. Anyone can end up in that position. You just don't know what's around the corner. So remember to live and love wisely, carefully, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. Thank you.